And now it's time for Music Theory at Home with Mark Grizzard.
18, 19, 20. Hey everybody, I hope you're having a good week. We have of course been doing some contextual analysis and considering how a phrase might have a tonic area, maybe a predominant area, and a dominant area, and then maybe come back home to a tonic area. We've also considered how one phrase area might have multiple chords in it and how chords in inversion can sort of act as bridges within a tonic area or predominant area, etc. Even if our Roman numerals are a little different within that tonic area. More specifically, we now like to look at how second inversion triads, or 6/4 chords, can be used to do that. How we can prolong one part of the phrase with some 6/4 chords. So we see here an example in A flat major, some SATB writing, and it sounds like this. We see some very clear triads going on here. In measure 1, for example, we could take a look at this entire measure and recognize it's A flat major. A flats, C's, E flats. Cool. So an obvious Roman numeral 1 on beat 1. On beat 2, we see all the same pitch classes. It's still a 1 chord, but we could be a little more specific and recognize that it is in second inversion, 1/6/4. And then on beat 3, a 1/6. Roman numeral here is not so bad. What is happening? We're sort of keeping this chord interesting by moving around the chord. And our bass specifically is doing an arpeggio. A lot of people might know that term. Pum, 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 pum. Keeping the harmony the same while doing melodically interesting things. And so the 6/4 chord that's on beat 2 is part of this arpeggio, and it has its own specific name, and that is an arpeggiating 6/4. What are we doing here? Prolonging the harmony, making sure this whole measure is just an A flat major chord while doing something interesting. So prolonging a harmony with a second inversion triad, that is an arpeggiating 6/4. We see some advice at the bottom of the screen. We of course can let the other voices move around. Maybe they can stay put as our upper voices do between beat 1 and beat 2. We're certainly still worried about parallel octaves and things like that. So that is an arpeggiating 6/4. What's going on in measure 2? A flat major, then on beat 2, well boy, I might be tempted to circle these as neighbor tones or something, although if I look closely I notice that it is a D flat major triad in second inversion, a 4/6/4 chord. So in measure 2, I think we're still in the tonic area, but in the process we've created this 4/6/4 chord. What do we call this? Well, we could call this a couple of different things. Either a neighboring 6/4 or a pedal 6/4. For the purposes of this class, these are interchangeable terms. What they are doing is prolonging this chord with a bass note that stays put and upper voices that are just walking up and walking back, kind of like neighbor tones via stepwise motion. In fact, we might be tempted again to circle these pitches and put M's there and say this whole measure is A flat major. And that's just about right. However, of course, we can be meticulous and recognize that that chord on beat 2 can be analyzed. And I think we should analyze it as a 4/6/4 chord. I just want to clarify here that we have multiple terms going on. Here's an example from the Hallelujah chorus, which we might call a neighbor 6/4 or neighboring 6/4. D major. I don't think anybody would suggest that we have entered a new part of the phrase. This whole measure is tonic, and tonic is decorated with this neighbor motion, hallelujah, and we would call this a 4/6/4 chord. And what's type of 6/4 chord? A neighbor 6/4. Really quick neighbor motion. Later on in this hypothetical almost hallelujah chorus, we might see something like this. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. When there's longer held notes, one might be tempted to circle that note and recognize that this second measure from the end is all G major. And then you'd say, oh, that's a pedal tone being held. Of course, though, that D belongs to a G major triad, which means we could analyze it and we could make it part of a 4-6-4 chord, and here we might say that's a pedal 6-4. That's why we kind of have these two different words, but let the record show either is going to be correct. There's no way that you'll be counted off by using pedal 6-4 or neighbor 6-4 when the other one applies a little more accurately. This is a wonderful segue to share with you this great YouTube video, which maybe you have heard. Of course, the Hallelujah Chorus has been sung a lot recently here over Easter weekend, and somebody posted on YouTube an organist that accidentally kicked the transposition pedal on the organ at a very inopportune time. Let's take a listen. That never gets old. I never get tired of hearing that. Anyway, that is, where were we? What were we doing? Okay, yes, measure 3. We now see a Roman numeral analysis here would not be so bad. 4, then beats 2. Well, we have a new root. This is an A flat major triad again, and it is in second inversion. We could put 1-6-4 here. So our Roman numeral analysis for measure 3, 4, 1-6-4, 4-6. Okay, how is this being used? I think you might also agree that sort of D flat major is being prolonged here. We're not in a new part of the phrase, we're sort of in this predominant part of the phrase. The 4 chord is at the beginning, the 4 chord is at the end, and we have this 6-4 chord bridging the gap. How is this bridging the gap? It's not some sort of arpeggio in the bass. It's not some sort of neighbor activity in the upper voices. Our bass is sort of doing like a passing tone. Hence the name passing 6-4. This is prolonging harmony with stepwise motion in the bass, usually between notes of inverted chords on one side or the other, and the chord in between, instead of just being a passing tone, we have a full passing chord. So when our bass is walking up by step, creating these chords in second inversion, we call that passing 6-4. Okay, so as we see here, these 6-4 chords are all ways to prolong harmony while doing something interesting. In measure 1, tonic area all day long. Measure 2, we have a new root here, but I think we're still in the tonic area. Not till measure 3, we're really in the predominant area, and that predominant area is decorated with passing motion. And here we see a recap of the 3 different types of 6-4 chords that we have seen so far. We'll talk about measure 4 and 5 on Friday. For now, let's get an opportunity to practice these 3 types with your homework. We have lots of different parts here of your workbook, but we're just going to do a couple of excerpts each. So, assignment 14.3, part 1, writing pedal or neighboring 6-4s. We are, of course, asked to flesh out Roman numerals and SATB texture. And I'm going to start looking at number 2. Number 2 is not part of your homework because there is a glaring typo. Does anybody see it? Aha! What the heck? Capital 4-6-4? We all know that 4s diatonically are minor. Lowercase, you guys. So we should see a 1-4-6-4 1 chord here in number 2. So fleshing this out should not be too bad. Here's what I did. I noticed that my bass is going to be a G for all 3 of these chords. So 1 chord in root position, G. Then a 4 chord in second inversion, that bass line will be a G. And in the process, we are creating this neighboring 6-4. I've chosen in my tenor to let this stepwise motion walk up to what is almost a neighbor tone and walk right on back. My alto is doing a similar activity. We are asked to analyze it using either pedal 6-4 or neighbor 6-4. Either is correct. And underneath, add a contextual analysis. My contextual analysis is T all day long because we are not really creating a whole phrase here. We're basically decorating G minor. So, part 1 of your homework is to do 3 and 4. Of course, example 3 is in minor. I wonder what that means. Next part, 14.3 part 2, writing arpeggiating 6/4s. Here we see, at least in example 2, D minor, 1, 1, 6, 4, 1. Here's what I did. I started with a fleshed out triad, fleshed it out in a new inversion, and then brought it back. But I'm a little nervous. I hope you're nervous with me, seeing all these voices move in the same direction together. Wait a second, let me babysit this. Bah! Parallel octaves. This is a temptation here in your arpeggiating 6/4s. My soprano and bass are both moving from a D down to an A and back up to a D. How do I fix that? Really, you could just let voices stay put. And that's what I'm doing. And then for a little melodic interest, I move my soprano back down. Here's we see that arpeggiating 6/4s are absolutely the pa. Arpeggiation. Of course, what are we doing here? Decorating our 1 chord. I'm going to write a little arp 6/4, sure. And then most importantly, recognizing that we are prolonging tonic activity here. So give 3 and 4 a shot on that. And finally, assignment 14.4 part 1, practicing passing 6/4 chords. I'd like to walk you through what I did here. I did number 2 as an example. We're in G minor. And so, just like any SATB writing, I want to make sure I understand the root and the inversion that I'm dealing with. I looked at this first 1/6 chord and recognized that's going to be a G minor triad in first inversion, which means B flats in the bass. My second chord is a 5/6/4, which means the root is D. It's major. I need to raise my leading tone, and it's going to be a D, F sharp, A chord in second inversion. Bass is going to be an A. And finally, G in root position. So I already know what my bass line is going to look like. I think it's going to look like this. Here's a piece of advice to you, which you may or may not choose to follow. I'm going to start in the middle here and recognize that, well, my 5/6/4 chord needs a doubled bass. All of our 6/4 chords should have a doubled bass. It's going to solve problems before they start. So I'm going to voice this with an F sharp in the tenor, D in the alto, A in the soprano. Not the only right answer, but I do have 2 A's in this middle chord. Now, I've got a 5 chord going to a 1 chord. I remember how to do this. I'm going to resolve my leading tone up. I'm going to keep a common tone, and then flush out the triad with a B flat in the soprano. Yeah, piece of cake. Now, I just need to fill in the first chord, smooth stepwise motion if I can, and this is what I've got. What have I done in the process? Created a voice exchange between soprano and bass. When you're trying to do something interesting and you're sitting on 1 chord, maybe just have voices trade notes. And through stepwise motion, we've not created just passing tones, we've created a passing chord, a passing 6/4 chord. And I don't know why they changed the instructions on us. I think contextual analysis would be appropriate here to recognize that this is all tonic activity. We are not in a dominant part of the phrase, we're just decorating tonic. A passing 6/4 chord. So, as a review, 14.3 part 1, 3 and 4, 14.3 part 2, 3 and 4, 14.4 part 1, 3 and 4. Piece of cake. Let me know if you have any questions. Have a great day, you guys. 15, 16, 17.